Well, hello there, and welcome back to the very latest 150th episode of the Love Machine podcast. Now, thank you everyone who has listened so far to all my lovely episodes that have happened. I've had some wonderful experiences, wonderful conversations over the last couple of years, and I really, really appreciate each of you that's commented and listened. Now, we're moving forward to the next 150. So this special episode, I've got a very, very special guest, someone I wanted to have on this podcast since the very first episode. But now, finally, I've got her with me today. I've got the fantastic Gillian McCallum, who is an award-winning matchmaker and owner of multiple brands, including the co-parenting agency and Drawing Down the Moon, which is the UK's longest-running dating agency. Gillian is a good friend of mine, and I'm really, really thrilled to have her here to discuss the topic of the surprising reasons your dating life sucks. Gillian, how are you doing?
Oh, James, we have talked about this for how long? I'm so proud of you to have a phenomenal podcast. I think it's one of the most listened to dating podcasts in the UK. We've gone back a number of years, so I know that people are getting the best possible advice and expertise from you. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you.
Thank you for doing it with me. It's been a long time coming, like you said, and I'm excited to do this because between us, we've discussed this topic many times about why people's dating life sucks, because we help them, don't we? We help them make sure that it doesn't, to turn their lives around, to bring them into truly happy relationships. So what are you up to at the moment? What sort of things have you been doing in your own life?
So we do talk about the fact that we're here to change people's lives for the better forever. I
Yeah.
often think that I'm one of the hardest working people in matchmaking and dating. I think you're probably my competition out there. But the great thing is, the more that we do, the more that we're changing people's dating lives for the better
Yeah.
forever. And so we're doing a huge amount here at Drawing Down the Moon. We have just launched, this is brand new and live, our new website. We have been around for 4 decades. So as you can imagine, a huge amount of change in dating, a huge amount of change in the way that people meet one another and the way that they change their lives through love and romance. And so the great thing about being the UK's oldest original matchmaking firm is that we have been at the forefront of all of that change. When we realize in dating that something isn't working for our clients or isn't working for us, we change it, we adapt it, so the way we operate really is at the cutting edge. And so the really fun thing about our brand new website, we've gone back to our roots. We were always known as being the creative matchmaker. We were always known as, introducing people who are maybe in the arts with someone in finance, or someone who was an architect with someone who was a ballerina. This whole concept of getting people who are maybe on paper very different, or maybe on paper an unusual introduction, and saying, well, I want to take a risk. And that's what we've always had the privilege of doing. And we're carrying on doing that. And if you have a little sneaky look at our website, drawingdownthemoon.co.uk, you will see there that we've brought some of that fun back into the dating world. And certainly we're showing all of that kind of fun side that we have at Drawing Down the Moon when we're making our introductions for our clients who are very serious about finding the love of their life.
Fantastic. I think having fun is probably the key to a successful dating life. And one of the main reasons people's dating life does suck is it stops being fun. Would you agree with that?
Totally. And if we're talking outside of matchmaking, if we're talking about dating as a whole, we know that online dating fatigue is real. There's a huge amount that we can talk about. I know we're only limited to 30 minutes, but one of the things that happens is, especially at this time of year, because I know that your podcast is going out pretty quickly, we've had that huge January surge of excitement. We've got what I call the Valentine's bump, which is when people suddenly realize they're single prior to Valentine's Day. They start contacting me as a matchmaker and date coach. And I know you, who's totally focused on date coaching, you'll be getting that bump in January as well. And what happens is, by the time it ticks round to March to April, they've been swiping, they've started off with that enthusiasm. And really sadly, that enthusiasm starts to wane. And it starts to wane because perhaps they're not tackling it in quite the right way. But what ends up happening is, if they haven't found the right presence for them, they give up and they wait again until the next January. And I'm here to say, don't do that. Don't give up. And I'm sure that you and I, over the course of the rest of the podcast, can maybe give some hints and tips on how they can avoid giving up, but dating fatigue is real. And it's also another reason why people go to Drawing Down the Moon, because we're holding your hand, we're taking care of you, we're looking after you, we're making sure that you don't get into that dreaded period where you decide to give up. The search is over, love is gone, hope is gone. We don't want that. We want you to stick at it until you find the right person for you. And of course, you have to meet a number of people before you're going to find the right person. And every wrong person is just a step in the right direction towards the right one. But giving people a chance, that is so key. So when you go on an introduction and they maybe don't wear quite the right jacket or say something a bit odd, people say terribly odd things on a first date. Ignore the terribly odd thing. Give people a chance. In Japan, the matchmaking companies will not allow you to just meet someone once. You must go on 2 dates with someone in Japan. And I think that's a tremendous idea. We certainly don't force our clients to meet someone twice, but in some ways, I wish we could.
I think you're right. Giving people the chance is a very, very important part of this. We all have some expectations going into dating, and that can sabotage us at the same time, can't it? Because we're looking at this list. As you always say, I'm going to let you say it. What is your catchphrase, Gillian?
Oh, the catchphrase, love is not a list. The catchphrase that was coined around 8 years ago, and I have not let go of that one. Love is not a list. And this is so important because people come to me as a matchmaker and they're saying to me, okay, I'm coming to you and here is the list. And you should hear some of the really extraordinary things that people say to me. And the most important thing to remember is not how tall someone is, how short they are, how wide they are, how much money they've got in their pocket. None of that is important. What's important is the way that someone makes you feel. Think about a Sunday morning and you're lying in bed and you wake up next to this person and they say to you, I know you've got an appointment at 11, but it's pouring outside. I'm going to run out. I'm going to get your car filled with petrol. I'm going to come back with a coffee and a croissant and you'll be ready to go. Now, height is no predictor of that happening. Finance is no predictor of that happening. Weight is no predictor of that happening. This is about a real connection. And I often think that when people come to me with a huge list of all the things they don't want, do want, need to have, I start to doubt and question whether that person actually wants to find love. Now, one of the reasons you might not want to find love is because you're actually frightened. You're frightened of rejection. So what you do, you put this huge list of 100 things that you're looking for, 100 pieces of criteria, because no one can ever match up to that list. You're looking for a unicorn. I can't quite give you a unicorn, and I'm going to be direct about not giving you a unicorn, but I might be able to get you a really nice pony with a party hat on. But the fact is that love is not a list. You've heard me say it a million times. I'm going to keep saying it a million more times. What you've got to think about is how the person makes you feel, how the person treats you. You are not going to know on a first date how someone's going to be able to treat you. You have to give people a chance, and you have to be as open as possible as to what that person is going to look like, sound like, be like. Criteria like university degree, don't even begin to discuss that with me. Criteria like the religion or faith that they have. Sure, it's wonderful that you have your faith and you have a strong faith. It is not important that your partner shares that faith. Controversial advice, I'm sure. I don't know if you agree with me, James. I just see that every single criteria that you add in reduces your chances of finding love. Let's say you're a female who's 45 years old. You're willing to date between 40 and 55. Let's say you're looking for someone over 6 foot, who's got a university degree, who earns over 100,000, who lives in London. You might say that was kind of simple criteria. There's a 0.03% chance of you finding that person. Why? Because there's 0.03% of the London population fits with that criteria. Nuts. So just by dropping things like university degree, school of life, being bright, being capable, and again, coming down to having shared interests or being able to understand and appreciate yours. That's far more important. You don't need someone who also likes tennis. You don't need someone who also likes to ski. They can après ski while you're going down the slope. It's important to have different things that you can enjoy doing apart. You don't necessarily have to do it together.
I completely agree with you. I think what's more important is shared life goals. If your goal is to settle down and get married, you need someone who wants the same thing. If you want to have children, you need someone that's on the same page. If you want to go and move to Australia and they want to stay in Wales, it's not going to work out. That's the most important thing. And shared values, making sure that you're going to get along and you are compatible. But shared interest, you can always get new interests, and having different interests is a great way of giving yourself a bit of a break from your partner as well, which is often quite important. I think one of the reasons people's dating life does suck is they spend too much time with their partner and they think that they're the be all and end all and make them priority too quickly. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, James, as usual, you've absolutely nailed it. And so you've got it right. When you're looking at a partner, you've got to be thinking about where are they going to be in 5 years? Do you want to be there? Is that what you, if they want to retire at 45 or 50 and lead a simpler life, but you would rather keep going great guns till 65, you have to decide, well, could we make that work? Could we work out a way where you're going to be at home and be a house husband, but I'm going to carry on with my career? That's still possible, but we've got to get to that point first. And the only way we get to that point is by giving people a chance, giving people an opportunity, and throwing out anything that is not values-based. So you've got to decide, what are the really key values to you? What is really important to you? And give the other person a chance to display that. And there's nothing worse than getting superficial feedback following a date. I want to hear about the depth and connection you receive over multiple dates, having met the person in a number of different occasions in a number of different spaces to see whether or not you might be able to make that work together. And that's some of the key advice I can give about getting into a relationship, because so many people are blocked at the very beginning. They're blocked because they're not giving people that opportunity and that chance. And so a lot of the advice that I give is really based around allowing people to show themselves for who they truly are, so that you can make a judicious decision about the type of partner that you're selecting to be with you in your life.
I love that. Now, one of the biggest ways people can just demonstrate that to people is through online dating and dating app profiles. And of course, they don't, do they? People do not write these things down. They write gibberish and have the worst possible photographs, which is a great reason why people's dating life sucks, because they're not doing it the right way. What are your top tips and tricks for dating apps?
Okay, so really importantly, when you're getting your photographs out there, James and I have talked about this before. When you first set up your profile, you've got to get it right at the beginning. The algorithm within the system on dating apps decides at the very beginning where you're placed. They rank you against everyone else based on feedback. James has talked about this a huge amount. I'm sure you've talked about it extensively elsewhere. So we know this. But what you've got to make sure is things like drinking. I always say, no pictures of you with a glass of wine or a pint of beer. It doesn't look good. No massive group shots where the person's looking, going, actually, I really fancy their friend. I mean, if you've got a group shot, you will get communication saying, hi, I'm not interested in you, but can I ask, is the brunette 3 down from you be available? And that's not what you want to do. Your online dating app is not about trying to get your friend a girlfriend or a boyfriend. It's about you getting what you need from the dating app. So no drinking shots. Slightly controversial. We've got the no drinking shots. If you're a guy, please do not be lying in bed. I have no idea why men think that a picture of them lying on their pillow is seductive. It certainly is not. And I think we've gone past the drugged animals stage. I don't think we're still on the drug. Oh, you correct me if I'm wrong, James. We're not still on the drugged animals. We're not getting
I'm afraid we are. I'm afraid there's loads of them still around. Yeah.
Okay, well, I was hoping that we could move on post-COVID. So then, of course, slightly controversially, I want you to also do a couple of things. All of the evidence shows that women do not pick the best looking guys on the apps. They don't ever get picked. So pick the really good looking guy, okay? That's because he's not getting anyone trying to pick him. Also, pick the guys with really crappy photographs. So pick the guy with the pint of beer. Pick the guy lying in his pillow, even though I've just told you never do a picture of the lying in the pillow, because no one else is picking them. So when you are looking at these pictures going, oh, these are truly awful, that person is not getting anyone clicking on them, which means that, you know, it gives you a much better chance of actually getting a date and an introduction. And the way to remember this always is, for me, think about the men you've dated in the past, if we're talking to women, or the women you've dated in the past for men. Sometimes people that you're looking at on these apps, if you'd picked your ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, if you'd picked the girl you'd fancied at school or the boy you'd fancied at school, if you'd taken their picture and put it in an app, chances are you would never pick them. And the reason is that when you're younger, and let's say you're at school and you met someone, you've just got this sense, this strong feeling that is not necessarily specifically based around the looks of a person. So what I would say is it's so hard to pick someone on the basis of a photograph. So give as many people a chance as possible, and also go from picking, selecting to meeting in very quick steps. I'm talking about a couple of messages. James and I have discussed this in the past, but I'm saying a couple of messages and meet. None of this long distance pen pal nonsense. I don't want to hear anything about that. You know, people say, well, you know, we were dating for a number of weeks. Okay, well, how many times do you meet up? Oh no, we never actually met up. Okay, you're not dating. If you're not meeting up on a regular basis, you're not dating. I'm sorry to say it.
I would add to that if you are meeting somebody and you're just hanging out or having fun, shall we say, you're not dating either. There's no relationship. If you're not actually going out.
When you're saying having fun, are we talking about sex? We're
talking about sex. We're talking about having sex. People that meet up for going around someone's house, Netflix and chill, doing that sort of thing. That's not dating. Because if you're not actually going out on these romantic dates where you get to know each other in different environments, there's no relationship. That is what's called a situationship. Another reason people's dating life sucks, they think they're in a relationship and they're not. Do you see that quite a lot?
James, absolutely right. We're talking about people, as you said, Netflix and chill, sex. And so we're talking about perhaps getting into something where you're thinking that they're wanting more, or they're thinking, or the vice versa. And what's actually happening is you're just one of multiple people having sex. Now, friends with benefits, big fan. I think that's a positive thing to do, maybe controversially. I think if you're not in a relationship, they're not in a relationship, and you're coming together to have sex and fulfill whatever you need to fulfill within your life at that specific period of time, that's great. I don't have an issue with that. But if one party thinks they're in a relationship and the other one is 100% certain that they're not, that's what you need to be careful of. If both parties are adults consensually saying, this is something that I want to get into, and you both agree, well, that's great. But what you're talking about, and I'm so glad you brought it up, is a situationship where one person thinks that they're building towards something. One person can see them brick by brick building the house, getting the garden, getting the car, getting the dog. They're in their minds virtually building this whole thing that they're creating, and the other person just sees it as someone they're.
Yeah, that's what happens all the time. And that's a waste of your life if you want something more.
It's an absolute waste of your life, James. And so what you've got to do, a lot of the time when people get into these situationships, they have this thing called hope. They are hoping and praying and willing this to become more. And so one of the things that I've talked about for a very long time is not having sex for 31 days. And the reason that you don't have sex for 31 days is really to do with the female brain. It's to do with what happens to our brain on orgasm. So it's the oxytocin. It's all the different chemicals that go swirling around. And what it actually does, it chops off all the parts of the brain that are really important, like reasoning and decision making. And so it's why you often see a friend with an absolutely horrendous boyfriend and they're saying, isn't he just the most spectacular person you've ever met? And the reason is they've had sex, she's had an orgasm, and her brain is fogged by this. And so what I talk about is get rid of the fog. You've got 31 days to date multiple times that week, multiple times that month, in order to make a judicious decision again about the kind of person that you actually want to be dating. And so if you are serious about wanting to be in a relationship and wanting to find the right person, it in 99% of cases does not start with a friends with benefits situation. In 99% of cases, it starts like a proper relationship. And please don't sit there thinking, maybe they'll change their mind. Maybe when they realize how incredible I am, maybe when I actually make them breakfast the next day, or maybe when it's not going to happen. They're not going to change their mind. They're happy because they've got what they want. And what they want is someone they see occasionally for sex who loves, adores, and cares for them. And that's not what you want. And the problem is you can get stuck, you can get attached, and they will remind you of the thing they said the very first time you met, which is, look, I'm not looking for anything serious right now. When someone says to you, I'm not looking for something serious right now, take them seriously. Take them seriously, because 9 months down the line, when you've been meeting up every week and you've been having sex and having dinner and doing whatever, and you're like, can I just check where this is going? Which, by the way, should never be happening at the 9-month mark, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They're going to turn around to you and say, well, I said at the beginning, I didn't want anything serious.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've met your kids. We hang out together. Like, what? So beware the situationship.
Yeah, it's surprisingly common nowadays, and something that I fight against with many of my clients. And it's a bit of a shame that happens. But you're right. If someone tells you they don't want it, take them on face value. It's not going to change. You won't be the magical person to come along and make that happen. Maybe 1 in 100 might do, but you don't want to take those chances. Go and find someone that is serious. Now, another reason people's dating life absolutely sucks is because they are comparing their new person to an old person. They are comparing an ex-partner. They've got some emotional baggage that's being brought forward into the equation. What are your thoughts on that? Do you see that as quite a common issue too?
Oh, yeah. And you know, the worst part of the whole comparing to the last partner thing is when you actually drill down on the last partner wasn't great. Like, the last partner didn't look after them or take care of them or treat them nicely. The last partner was usually difficult and awkward and caused problems. And this is for men and women. But you know what? Maybe they were like really good looking, or they once took you to Glyndebourne, or whatever the thing is that you might be looking for. So yes, comparing to the last partner has got to be gotten rid of. Number one, because they're not with you now. They're not with you now because presumably, if you're comparing your new partner to the last one, they didn't want to be with you. And if someone doesn't want to be with you, that is all the evidence and all the information that you possibly need in order to move on.
Yeah. I think it's also unfair that if you were treated badly by an ex-partner, that you expect the next person to treat you badly as well. Because all men are bastards, that sort of thing.
It's terrible. And it can really prevent people from getting into a really healthy, positive relationship. And one of the things that's really common at Drawing Down the Moon is that we obviously don't take on everyone that comes to us. And people often say, well, you know, what are my chances? Or, you know, on what basis will you turn me down? And it's usually readiness. And readiness means having recovered from the previous relationship, whether it's a divorce, a widowhood, or whether you've just been in a series of bad relationships. And part of the reason we would turn you down is to allow you time to heal, but also potentially to seek a therapist. You know, it used to be in the UK that the word therapist was very American and something that we didn't deal with, and we don't have those issues here. Thankfully, that's no longer the case. And there are some brilliant therapists who can help you heal through the trauma so that when you are ready to be introduced to the right person, you are ready for that right person. And the last thing that we want to do is bring you on board, introduce you to someone wonderful, but because of past trauma that's been unresolved, unhealed, you're not ready for them. And it can be overwhelming. If you're used to being treated badly and someone comes along and does what I would regard as the bare minimum in terms of looking after you. I talked earlier about filling the car with petrol before you go out. James, I know for a fact that the way that you love your wife and the type of man that you are, that's a daily occurrence. You're out there getting the petrol, you're out there getting the croissants and the tea and the coffee. And I doubt you get a thank you because that's the minimum that you do. That's the bare minimum that you do as a good husband and a good father. And so it must be very frustrating for you as well to hear stories of men doing way less than the bare minimum and expecting a big thank you.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. Even today, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. I'm going to go out and get some diesel in the car, and I'll probably buy some cake of some sort. You're absolutely right. You've nailed my life. Do I get a thank you? Maybe.
But you know, the thing about that is sometimes we as women are allowing men not to treat us the way that we should be treated. And I want to stay positive about guys. You know, I'm so lucky that in my life, I'm surrounded by incredible men and I work with incredible men and our clients are incredible men. But we do know that there are men out there that are not sticking to this standard. And so therefore, ladies, if you are finding these men or dating these men or meeting these men, you've got to move on. You've got to find yourself a James.
Oh, that's very nice. I will spread myself out there across the world. That's what I try and do. That's sort of what I do. That sounds, well, maybe that's the wrong terminology.
I don't think your wife's going to appreciate any part of that.
She's not going to appreciate any of this if she's listening from the kitchen nearby. But moving on to other reasons people's dating life sucks. I think people do make bad choices as well. I think their picker tends to be off. That's what we say in the trade. So how can you improve that? Because people always say to me, oh, I always pick the wrong guys, always pick the wrong women. What can they do to make sure that they don't do that?
Maybe you pick the wrong woman, maybe you pick the wrong guys. I don't know. What I know is that once you establish and realize that someone is not right for you, you need to kick them to the curb. It is far harder to do than me just saying it. But I'm telling you, if you're in your mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, mid-30s, you cannot waste time, particularly if you want to have a family. So don't allow someone who is taking advantage of you, has not put you front and center, who is not making you the most important person in their life. You've got to get out. And it's so hard. And one of the reasons it's so hard is because there are good things about that person. Even the worst people out there have some really good traits, have some things about them that are wonderful. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been attracted to them in the first place. Maybe they're charismatic, or maybe there's just something in the way they move or the way they smile at you, or maybe they did this fantastic thing at the very beginning. But the moment someone starts to erode your confidence, the moment someone is showing that they do not want to be in the committed relationship that you want to be in, you need to move on. You can't expect people to change. A really good friend of mine said, the only time you can ever change a man is when you're changing his diapers as a baby. And I think that absolutely nails it. You cannot change a person, and so don't even begin to try. If the person's not the right person for you, move on, because also there's another person out there that's probably the right person for your previous partner. But the other thing I like to think about is the fact that every day you're with the wrong person is a day that the right person is waiting for you. Like there's people there right now waiting to meet you, but they're not meeting you because you've held yourself back with someone who is treating you badly or is not the right person for you.
Absolutely agree with that. I think set that person free as much as you set yourself free to go and meet someone that makes you happier. I think just to sort of summarize all this, I think the biggest reasons people dating life sucks, something just occurred to me, the reason it sucks is because you're telling yourself that it sucks. You're telling yourself that you're doomed, you're making bad choices, you're picking the wrong people. You're telling yourself a very, very negative story that can only become self-fulfilling prophecy. I think you're right. Be positive, be optimistic, and go out there and tell yourself, my dating life doesn't suck. It's a journey, it's an adventure, it's something I'm going to really enjoy from now on. Any last thoughts on that?
You were totally right once again, James. And dating life sucks is a sentence. It's like this very perfect example. If you walk around saying, I am single, I'm single, I'm single, what happens? Your brain says I'm single, so you remain single. You've got to be so careful with the terminology you use. Yeah. So I'm looking for someone, I'm searching for someone, I'm going to find someone. This is my year. I'm going to meet the right person. I'm open to finding love. That's the perfect way to put it. And the moment you put yourself in that gear, and that's such an interesting thing about Drawing Down the Moon, one of the things that we find is if you take the commitment to come along, inquire on our website, submit your details, have that phone call, have that in-person meeting with our matchmakers, and we decide to take you on, something magical happens. Suddenly you're going to meet a friend through a friend. Suddenly you're going to be at Glyndebourne and meet someone. Suddenly you're going to be at a barbecue and meet someone, a dinner party. You're going to be at Wimbledon and someone's going to be standing next to you when you're queuing up for your strawberries and cream, because you've put it out there into the universe that you're ready to find love, that you're ready for this momentous occasion to happen when the person that you've been looking for turns out they've also been looking for you.
Exactly. Law of attraction. Tell yourself good stuff. Tell yourself your dating adventure starts now. Gillian, I know we could just talk and talk and talk, and we probably will do. But for now, thank you so much. If someone wants to find out more about you and Drawing Down the Moon, how do they do that?
So there's two websites they can take a look at. drawingdownthemoon.co.uk is our main website for Drawing Down the Moon. I also have a personal website, gillianmccallum.com, where you can also see the various brands that I am so lucky to be a part of and represent. And we can't wait to hear from you. We've got the friendliest matchmakers in the UK. We've won more global awards than any other matchmaking company in the world. But most importantly, tens of thousands of happy clients over a 40-year period of time, and the best team in the business.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Gillian. Have a wonderful day.
You too, James. It was lovely to see you as always. Thank you so much for inviting me on to this 150th episode of Love Machine.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespriest.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.